Welcome back. Can you believe it? This is the 11th episode of restoring this massive steam hammer. I really urgently want to get the ram back in here. But first, I'm gonna have to make a die key. Now, I've never made a die key before, and it might seem like a really simple thing. Well, it's just a bit of metal. Hammer it in. Sorted. But I'm quite certain that there exist bad die keys and good die keys. And because I'd like to do a half-decent job, I want to try and make a good one. So, gonna fire up the forge, and we are gonna put some of this or that 4340 round bar, EN24 round bar, in the fire and draw out ourselves a rectangle. I've just made a very stupid mistake. Not like, oh, I'm so stupid, but like, I'm worried that I was able to make this mistake. Forged out this nice block of steel for our key. I've been making sure that we don't make it too small for this. But this entire time, I forgot to do one very important thing. Measure how long it was. It's shorter than the die. Like, what? Utter blithering idiot. All right, so a bigger bit of steel went in the fire, forged it down, milled her up, and chucked our taper in it. Knowing the difference in width between this side and that side, as well as the width of the die, I just went ahead and chucked it up in the mill, squeezed it in the vise with an appropriate width feeler gauge shoved under one end, and as you can see, it now has a taper. Now what I've tried to do is mill this such that this width is gonna mean that the key starts getting stuck about here, leaving us plenty of room to be able to fettle, tweak, grind, and bring down the die key for maximum contact. And as we do that, I'm sure this thing's gonna drive in further. Though it fits on the width, it doesn't fit up top. We've got to grind the key to match these radii and the angles on the top and bottom. Fortunately, I should still have my radius gauge. Made it out of a washer when we were making our dovetails. Yay. That's a bloody die key. I love it. And the best part is I was hoping that we were gonna have contact on these surfaces, and we do. We can, if we want, trim off a little bit off of this side until it's had a good few in and outs. I'm not gonna touch that. I am, however, gonna make sure that we know which way is up and down, since I like how it fits. At the moment, bloody good news. That's what I like. That is exactly it. That's a fit, folks. Slap me in the face and call me a machinist, because it might just be time. Don't slap me in the face. Maybe one day I could be called a machinist. So bloody close to putting this thing back in the power hammer, and I've just spent a few minutes humming and hawing, trying to decide if I do what I think I should do, but it's gonna take time, and I feel like I'm rushing. Before we crack on fine-tuning this piece, I want to talk about fine-tuning us, which is why I'm really happy that today's paid partnership is with BetterHelp. Because a few years ago, I was struggling with some really strong feelings of burnout, and I actually used BetterHelp to be able to spend time talking with one of their therapists. And I'm happy to say that at this moment in life, I'm at a much better balance and a much better spot as it relates to work and life. And I'm really happy that that service exists because it suits my personality really well. The thought of driving all the way to town, booking an appointment in advance, yada, to get an appointment with a therapist in person, they were all things that made it harder to get any sort of help and guidance. Being able to do it from my phone, in my home, meant that all the barriers to actually getting some help and guidance were reduced. And that's exactly why BetterHelp was founded. They exist to remove the traditional barriers to therapy in order to make mental health care more accessible, and it's now the world's largest therapy service with a worldwide network of therapists. So it went like this. I signed up, I answered a questionnaire, and they matched me with a therapist. You usually get matched within 48 hours. Then we had sessions via video call, but you can also phone and use messaging. And so if you need some help to fine-tune you, and you want to be able to do it from the comfort of your home or while you're on the go, please go to betterhelp.com/forge to get a special discount on your first month. The link is in the description down down below. Let's get back to the video. Check this out. Here on the back of the die, we have these little ears right there. And I hope you'll remember that there was this little roller component in there. And it was all rusted. The pin for it is rusted to hell. But the purpose it serves is actually part of the linkage. This little side component lives inside the power hammer. Over here, it's connecting to the valve assembly somehow. And clearly, it's kind of some sort of mechanical feedback mechanism for knowing where the ram is and adjusting the valves accordingly. So ram goes up, this thing twists, ram goes down, this thing twists. Now, I don't fully understand it yet, but being a simple man, I can at least understand this. Part go jiggle, jiggle. That's probably not good. Oh, I'd love to just put it straight in the machine, but I think that would be irresponsible. We should fix this. We should make it better. That's what we're gonna do. How will we do that? I think we need a new pin. I think we need to find a way to maybe get some bronze inside of this so it spins a little freer. This could just be held captive, or the replacement, sit in there, and we put some bronze in this, and it is this that spins against that, perhaps. Right, so on the note of holding this captive, you see there is a little hole right here? I think that hole, at one point in time, had a pin that locked the original axle in place, and on the underside, a little remnant of something. So I think that thing might have snapped off at one point in time. Nice, I love that. I'm just riveting it in more. Woo! I love brute force. It just always comes in so handy and solves all my problems. Oh no! Broke my pin. Now I've got two things stuck in there. Oh yeah. You know, it never gets old just pondering the fact that, you know, this little bit of metal has probably been stuck in there for over a century. Got put in there in the middle of one world war, lived through a second, and it took a silly British kid on a thing called YouTube to finally get it out. Ooh, interesting discovery. The pin we pulled out is obviously parallel, but check this. Look at the hole size here compared to there, and there. It's bloody tapered. So this is definitely a replacement part. There's a tapered pin going in, secured with this little thing. So I've got to work out what on earth that taper is on these very messy holes. 21.42, 23.9, and that is over 133 millimeters. Now I need a triangle calculator. Calculate. Sweet. That's pretty simple. 1.068 degrees. That means it was probably originally just a 1 degree taper, which is pretty normal. Right, so in order for us to manufacture a new pin with that 1 degree taper, we've got to think, how would we cut a taper? Well, have a look at this, folks. Though I have had at least one lathe with the taper cutting attachment that would have been so perfect for this. We don't have one now, but we do have the compound on the lathe. So like that could be an option, but I've just measured the travel. It's only got 97 millimeters of travel, but the pin needs to be at least 130 something millimeters. That's a dilemma. We have one of these things. Maybe we'd have to use some combination of them both. Maybe tilt that indexing head on the milling machine. I'm not exactly sure. But I'm at least gonna cut a bit of steel because today's one of those days where I feel like indecision is just gonna stall me. Gotta start doing something, figure it out as we go. Worst comes to worst, we just come in here and grind a taper on a bar because there's always doing it by hand. Right, I made a big old fuss about nothing on cutting the taper. It was just as simple as going to maximum travel and then moving the entire carriage. I then touched off here and then just kept cutting with this set in its new spot. However, I might have made a mathematical oopsie. Maybe geometrical oopsie. I don't know. Measurement up here, of course, is all good. However, down here, I went ahead and chucked a caliper on it. Not reading what I expected, 19.6. It was bloody meant to be 21.42. That's a 4.3 millimeter difference. 4.3. Calculate. 1.8 degree angle. I think I accidentally cut double the angle of taper that was required. We did our crude calculations of the angles based on the outside of that taper, the whole thing. However, when I twist this compound to the 1 degree, that's putting a 1 degree angle on just one side, meaning we get another 1 degree angle on the other, I guess, ultimately making a 2 degree taper, or at least 1.8 degree taper. It's kind of close, you know, it's close enough that I'm calling that a 2 degree taper. So there is apparently something that I needed to learn today. I've learned it. Cut new steel, make new taper. Let's have a look. Righto, so this is meant to be the thick side, but it's not even barely going in, let alone going in the whole way where it needs to go. I made another oopsie. Really should have paid attention to how absolutely messed up this hole is. I mean, it's just an abomination. It's nowhere near round. I don't even know how that's possible. How did that become so ovalized? But anyway, that gives further clues as to why somebody at some point in time just put a much smaller pin in, because this was probably all messed up and damaged. That's fun. Let's see if we can make that round. A little help from the die grinder. I've got it now fitting. On the lathe, I made the middle portion of this pin parallel. It's currently 22.7 millimeters, and that is so we can either bore this out or make a new one of these with a much more precise fit. Now, what we also got to do is got to make sure this pin doesn't shuffle. So I've got to find a way to make a mark through there. Hopefully, that's going to be a surefire way to break one of these, isn't it? But maybe we can scratch it at least. Oh my goodness! I think that's our mark. Yeah! All right, let's get that out before it's stuck. Woo! Now this, gotta get that to fit this, or make a new one. Again? I want to find a way for some oil to get in this surface. I really should have a bigger stockpile of bronze here in the workshop, because it's not the first time that I've run against this. But anyway, these little thrust bearings are too small to be able to do anything useful, but with some bronze, I could have maybe made this a different way. We're gonna get it done, steel on steel, and I'll hopefully help it by putting a little oil hole in there. So this could be something we could do. We could get in there, throw some oil in, hopefully extend the life of this thing. Oil grooves. Oh yeah. Yeehaw! I think the time has come. I think it is now time for this to go back in the power hammer. And it's been like 3 episodes about wanting to put this thing back in the power hammer, but it's now time. Woo! How on earth are we gonna do this, y'all? Come on, you're kidding me. I forgot, it's gotta go from the top. Ah. Ah. Why is everything so difficult? Look at that. That looks like a person stood here like this. Woo! Huzzah! Success, dear friend. No! Is this level of stupidity curable? Ah! Good. Bugger! Okay, that can stay there right now. That was more of a journey than it should have been. Hokely dokely. Ram bam, thank you ma'am. Right, I've put my shaft on the table, I've given it a good clean, and now we need to talk about the stuffing box, the gland packing. I don't know if it's called the stuffing box. For the people keenly following along, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because we talked about it when we were looking at the steam trains, and we've talked about it a bunch. It's what makes the seal between the ram and the cylinder. You know the deal, it's the graphite rope that we now have 8 meters of. The incredibly expensive and hard to source stuff arrived a few weeks ago, and before the ram goes back in the machine, I want to have this stuff ready to go. So we need to find an end, and we're going to need to cut some rings of it. Little loops that will sit neatly around the diameter of the ram, and then we'll get crushed up with these bronze bits we made a few weeks ago. Where's me bloody phone gone? Want some diagrams, you know? Aha! I found an instruction page. Wind the packing needed around the rod, then cut. If the packing is too large, put it in newspaper, then roll it out with a pipe. Oh my goodness, that's sick. Stagger joints 180 degrees or 120. This could go one of 2 ways. This could either just be surprisingly easy or just as difficult as I expect. That is so cool. It is a bit like wrangling an anaconda though. All right, stay. Got my oil can. Oh no. Alrighty, let's put some graphite up in there. We need some studs. And no, Jamie, you and I, we're not gonna do. We need some threaded studs, so they've got to be somewhere. They'll be too short. I really hope they're not missing. Were the studs in here when we got the machine? It might have been loose. Oh, I was wrong. I was wrong. It's not a stud. I mean, it might be a stud, but it's a through hole here. At least that's not threaded. That makes life easier. All right, so regular bolts maybe. Maybe? No, it doesn't seem long enough.
I think it'd be long enough, wouldn't it?
No, see, the whole idea of this technology, Jamie, this piece goes up. And then there needs to be a little bit of gap so that you can squish this graphite rope and squish it so that it takes up all of the empty space in there and makes a seal on the rod. If this face is touching that face, you can't squish it anymore. And if this bolt is only that long, you'll see that there's no adjustability because this gap here is as thick as that gap there, so we're not gonna be able to squish the graphite in. No squishability, no good. So we need longer. Okay, so this could be an option. That would at least give us about an inch of adjustability. The annoying thing is they're shiny. Up we go with that. Get up there. This one face us. We might have to do the old rolling pin trick here, Jamie. Get in there.
After all that searching for thicker graphite rope, you got too thick.
Yep. A little rolling pin action, you know what I'm talking about? Definitely fits better. It's just now like 3/4 of an inch too long. You know what though? It's gonna be so tight and stuck that the ram won't want to move. I need to get from the back. Oh, and that's the final bit of that. Chuck this second piece up in there. 180 degrees from the first. All right, I've got 2 pieces of graphite in. Let's now chuck this up. Got that bad boy cinched down. Let's get this ram sunk in there. So now we need our piston rings again. Question is, where on earth are they? Aha! Piston ring.
I cannot believe that you remembered that they were there so quickly.
Pretty impressive.
You are god-awful at that.
All right, let's see. It's so stuck. We'll drop it down. Look at this. We've got this handy little device. Just holding the piston rings closed. Timber. Oh! It's stuck. As you can see, the hook is not attached. That's really tight. I don't think I should have to hammer on the ram to get it down. Part of the reason this stuff goes in there is in order that we get some tightness, but at the time you wouldn't have had the tolerances to get any other way, I'm assuming. Which then allows you to get a seal that you couldn't get another way, because as this is squished, just like a bit of Play-Doh, it squishes, it then spreads out wide. But that means that as a result of squishing it, it gets tighter too. So perhaps we just need to adjust this. Oh, wow, that got loose. How about adjust this? Oh, look at that. Definitely not as loose as it wants to be though. But unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. It's been a sincere pleasure having you here. Please do check out today's paid partner, which was BetterHelp. The link is down below. And I bloody appreciate that you guys are all here to watch while we try and figure this out. If you enjoyed it, please do like it, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.